Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Has the political scenario in India drastically changed in the past few years? How deep has been that change? What can be expected from India's political scenario in the coming few years? How effective has been the role of the opposition in the past few years? And is the opposition facing a near destruction in the coming years? Also, how should we view the recent IT surveys on BBC India and its impact on the 2024 general elections? To talk more on this, we have with us today a very special guest, Mr. Tehseen Poonawala. Tehseen is a political activist who is seen almost every day in most primetime TV debates. He is also a TEDx speaker, a venture capitalist, and an activist.
First, he is more populist. Populist is what authoritarian or towards authoritarian regimes are. Modi is trying to do, or what his government is trying to do, is take away the state's rights. So you have a big government, a strong government in that sense, stepping into the domain of the state, and you're looking at journalists' phones. So if your transfer price surveys happened in 2008, 9, 10, whenever they allege that they happened, why journalists working today in BBC have that on their phone? He then goes on to add that any news that the BJP wants can be made viral. So the Congress needs to again up its communication and tell people what it has going to give them precisely. They've lost their government on misinformation. There is a direct connection between loss of jobs and rise of mobs. Parliament, unfortunately, has become a rubber stamp for the government. In the case of the Congress restaurant, you don't know who's the head chef. You don't know what are they going to serve. All this restaurant's telling at lunchtime is that the BJP restaurant is bad. I agree. I want to eat in your restaurant, but I need a menu, right? I need to understand it's a buffet, it's an a la carte. I need to understand what you're going to serve to me. I need to understand who's your chef. So either 2G was a 1,76,000 crore loss, or there was no loss to the exchequer. There was no notional loss. What is a notional loss? Have you ever heard of what is a notional loss? What is a notional loss? So now, on a piece of fiction made by the CAG, Vinod Rai, absolute trashy report. These bunch of people get together saying there's a loss of 1,76,000 crores. And with respect to the Honorable Supreme Court, before whose majesty I bow, they cancel licenses of people who are investing in telecom. You destroyed the entire telecom sector. Unlike the BJP, no one was filing cases or putting them in jail, whatever. The BJP got together with the left to oppose the nuclear deal. But nobody called the BJP anti-national, right? In my opinion, there was nothing worse for this country than opposing the nuclear deal and getting the energy exception. Yet the BJP in parliament tried to bring down the government along with the left. And the issues of this country is unemployment, lack of opportunities, lack of growth. That is the only issues that will help the Congress win. It is the Achilles heels of the BJP. They have no answer to that.
And don't miss the rapid fire round at the end. So hi Tehseen, great to have you on my show and really looking forward to a very interesting conversation with you.
Thank you, Jaya. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to it. It's afternoon here in India and morning there where you are. So good morning, good afternoon to all your viewers.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon to everybody in the world. What we will do is we will talk a little bit on Indian politics in general and a little bit on a few burning things that have developed in India in the past few months, where I would really like your thoughts, incisive thoughts on them. My first question is, do you think post 2014, the Indian political framework has changed drastically compared to what was there for the near 70 years before that?
Yeah, it has. Not 70 years, about 65 years. Because
whatever, near 70 years. So yeah, 65 years. And tell me
it has.
On how.
India has moved right of the center, not economically. India continues to be both, in fact, Mr. Modi economically is very much left of the center. However, in a social base, on a religious base, India has moved right of the center. So the goalpost has shifted a little bit to the right. I'm only talking on a social parameter, again, not economical. And that change is quite visible in India now. So first, he's more populist. Populist is what authoritarian or towards authoritarian regimes are. In terms of populist, You see, what Mr. Modi is trying to do, or what his government is trying to do, is take away the state's rights for welfare. So, for example, India is a welfare state. It must always remain a welfare state. But generally, these welfare schemes were run by states. What his government has done is try and bring the big brother and make central schemes. He hasn't really come out with anything new because, for example, what he talks about Ayushman Bharat states already had insurance. He talks about giving food to 80 crore Indians. Please remember, it was the UP that got in the food security bill. So there's nothing new. Manrega is something that he mocked famously, continued to mock, but has had to make the highest allocations there because of the economic perils that the country faced, particularly during COVID. So again, you see, he's not come up with anything new or innovative, but he's come up with an approach where he's tried to, or the government is trying to step into state subjects. Even if you were to see, now let me go the other way. Reforms that he thought were good for the economy, for example, the agricultural bills, which were opposed by farmers, they again stepped in on the state subject. Agriculture is a state subject, not a center subject, but he passed the laws in parliament. So each of these things are stepping into the domain of the state. So you have a big government, a strong government in that sense, stepping into the domain of the state and trying to give a model which states were already giving or which already existed in India, except it's sort of marketed better. It's shown as it's being done by Mr. Modi. On the other side of the spectrum, when I say that the government is right of the center in a religious tonality, I think that requires no articulation. That I think is quite there, Jaya. You know it as much as I do. It is wearing a religious identity, and it mixes that religious identity with nationalism, and that's there for everyone to see.
Right. So, are you saying when you started by saying he has actually moved left of the center? Are you saying that the welfare schemes are better now than before?
No, I'm
Like,
saying they're
I think
bigger.
they're packaged in a different way.
They're better packaged. They're bigger.
Right. I'll come to the next question, which is about misinformation, and perhaps it is a bit about the right wing thing that you said. That do you think misinformation at the moment is playing a huge role in Indian politics, or do you think that both sides can do it, so it is actually balanced?
No, it's never balanced. The government has a bigger advantage, right? It's a government that loves spreading information or misinformation. Let me give you an example. In 2018, the then BJP president and now the Home Minister Amit Shah ji said that listen, there was a situation, there was a lie spread by one of our workers that Akhilesh Yadav ji slapped his father Mulayam Singh Yadav ji. Then Mulayam Singh Yadav ji was alive. It was a lie, but listen, our workers spread it and it became viral and it helped us, or words to that effect. He then goes on to add that any news that the BJP wants can be made viral. So when you have a government muscle making information viral, that does not, that the balance of power lies in favor of the government information, or the BJP, which at times is accused of spreading misinformation. That other side do it, I'm not taking away, but it isn't as organized as the BJP is organized at spreading information or misinformation. So there is an information war, but the balance of power is in favor of the BJP without doubt. They have a machinery, they have a very effective machinery that spreads information and that spreads misinformation at times.
Now, misinformation, anything done by the opposition, I've seen, has been dealt with very viciously by the government. But we have the same laws for everyone in India. What stops the opposition if they are attacked with doctored videos, doctored memes, doctored documents, to do this, to use the same laws and come against those who are spreading it?
So I'm not in favor of political battles going to courts, right? So I'm not in favor of political battles becoming legal.
But you have
I
to
think
take recourse of law in if you have to fight anything, you have to do that.
no, you got to be smarter in spreading your information. So if somebody spreads a misinformation, say about me, say Jaya spreads misinformation about me, I need to be alert, quick, and have the resources and the reach to call you out. Courts and the legal process should be kept out of this domain unless it's extremely defamatory or it's extremely violent or threatening. You should fight it politically. And unfortunately, in political battles, the BJP has a slight edge over the opposition.
Do you think the BJP, if any lies are spread against them, they fight it politically, or do you think they do it through a law, through an enforcement at the moment? At
More
the
politically, more
do,
politically. But they do use the legal route. They do. I'm not denying it. But that's wrong. They should also stop from doing it because
That's wrong.
someday it'll
But
turn.
how is it working in India at the moment that anything which is unflattering towards the ruling party is being fought? How is it fought? Is it fought in social media, or is it fought in by use of law?
Different. There's no one straight jacket that fits all. So, for example, night after night after night after night, in fact, after your show, I'm recording a show for the evening. I go on TV and I'm criticized the Honorable Prime Minister, the Home Minister. I've never faced any threats in terms of legal threats, right?
I was
Not
more
in
talking
courts.
about the misinformation. I mean, what you are saying is criticizing, and that is fair, and you should tackle it politically. But I'm talking about the spreading of misinformation, doctored videos, doctored documents. For example, I'll say that it was going around that Amartya Sen had actually swindled a lot of money and looted a lot of money from the Nalanda Trust, which was going around quite virally. Things like
Mr. Sen should take the concerned person who tweeted that or put that out to court.
he
That
can
is for
do that, but
individuals.
the information spreads to a lot of people in the meantime who start believing it. For example, the
Yeah,
Alu and Sona video is still believed by everybody of Rahul Gandhi, right?
that is a perfect example. Now you see the Alu and Sona video is a perfect example. That the Congress should have used politically to counter and to put out the facts what happened. Unfortunately, now that they are countering it, and we know that it was actually Mr. RG saying it for the Honorable Prime Minister, but it's been tweaked. You see, that should have come out much before than coming out now. So what I'm trying to say is one aspect of political battles is being swift to respond. Sometimes, and therefore to my earlier comment to your earlier question, the BJP is much better at it because they're much swifter in responding. They respond in real time. Sometimes the opposition has too much of a bureaucracy and takes too long to respond. Let me give you a very practical example. Okay, do you remember the controversy about Rahul Gandhi being in Nepal in a nightclub with a with a
Yes,
Chinese ambassador,
yes,
right?
yes.
Now he was at a nightclub called Lord of the Drinks. The misinformation spread deliberately by the handles of the BJP, which he was with a Chinese ambassador. Two aspects. This was a perfect issue for the Congress to go to court. Perfect issue. They didn't do it because this was a lie, right? It spread from legitimate verified channels. It wasn't coming from a bot account. It was coming from verified people associated or sympathetic. You could have gone to court because that was a false. Secondly, politically, I was the only person who responded in real time. And do you know how I responded? Jaya, this is very interesting. I know the owner of Lord of the Drinks. My wife knows them. I called them up. I asked them, who's your general manager in Nepal? Got the number. Got the general manager on a conference. Asked him, was Mr. Gandhi? They said, yeah. I said, was that the Chinese ambassador? He said, no, this was a known Nepalese singer, the lady. He put it out. Within 8 or 9 minutes, I was on all TV channels saying, no, this is not the Chinese ambassador. I dare you. But the party took the whole day to respond. By then, look, I'm an individual, right? I'm not even a member of the Congress party, right? You're not a member of the Congress party. We may support a ideology or a party or whatever, but our reach is limited. By the time that happened, the misinformation had spread everywhere. And while I was on television,
I didn't
putting out
know
the
about
facts,
it till you said this. Actually, I also didn't know what happened to that story, and it's a new thing that
yeah, and then of course it got
I.
killed. It got killed because I put out facts. I completely put out facts, and I was calling up Congress leaders that this is the fact. Come out, attack them. And then it died down. The story got killed because it was not true.
So you're putting the blame more or less squarely on the Congress party for not being serious enough in understanding how dangerous misinformation is and not responding as much as as they should. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not blaming them. I'm saying they have to wake up and smell the coffee. They've lost 2014 and 2019 purely on 2014 on some of the things that were said that were not true. They've lost their government on misinformation by opposition on 2G, Colgate, CWG, etc. It was purely misinformation, purely misinformation, purely misinformation. But if you don't respond in real time, you will be left behind. And from 2009 to 2014, or 2011 to 2014, when the misinformation against the then UPA government was at its peak with regards to Colgate or 2G, etc., since then the world has changed tremendously in 2022, 2023. You got to be even faster. Information is now coming on your phone every second. Every second you're processing a new information. Your response must be that quick, or it goes viral.
Right. Now, in this context, I have to ask you something that developed recently, which is the Team Jorge, which was spelled as Team George, which was a ring that was running in Israel that was unearthed. I don't know whether you know about it, but they have been influencing elections in more than 30 countries through misinformation, through a mass misinformation that they have been using. And they have said that the inspiration behind the team of journalists who investigated and unearthed it was Gauri Lankesh, Indian journalist Gauri Lankesh, who died. How far do you think, and actually in India today, I read that that toolkit, I mean, those softwares are have been used in India. How far do you think a kind of mass information is in place, which is impossible to fight from the other side unless you have that kind of a machinery?
It is difficult to find. How do you prove it, right?
Hmm.
So it is very difficult. Also, because the difference in India versus the rest of the country, not India, but Southeast Asian countries, is the lack of privacy or the lack of being okay with privacy being violated. So the standard answer in India is, so if someone's tapping your phone, if you've not done anything wrong, why do you get scared? That's a
Mhm.
standard response
That's
in
right.
India.
That's right.
Let me give you another thing. When I was fighting for Aadhaar not to be made mandatory in Supreme Court, I was only fighting that it not be linked to your mobile or your bank account, which was upheld. The then Attorney General of India, representing the government of India, which is the Modi government, said in Supreme Court that privacy is not a fundamental right, and the government has a right to invade your privacy. This is in court. The government said it. Of course, later on, it was upheld to be a fundamental right. But what I'm trying to tell you is you don't have privacy in India. You don't have the concept of privacy in India. Therefore, in a context where you don't have the concept of privacy and it's not guarded with absolute alertness, these things are easier to do. These things are easier to carry out, and they're more difficult to get located or to get exposed.
I'd ask you something which has developed recently. That is, since the beginning of 2023, this year, a series of very unflattering news have come out about India. I mean, first it started with the BBC documentary, which was very critical of the Prime Minister Modi. Then came the Hindenburg report, which saw Adani put in a very bad light, as well as most of the financial institutions downgrading his ratings all over the world, followed by Mr. George Soros saying that perhaps this is going to be a watershed moment and people in India are going to wake up and democracy is going to be revived. In a sense, democracy is in danger in India. And the response of the government has mostly been that there is a huge conspiracy that is going on all over the world to bring down India. Now, bad news have come about India before. How do you see these series of events, and do you think there is a conspiracy going on against India to bring it down because it's promising?
Well, even if there isn't one, the government would like to paint it that there's a conspiracy against India because it moves them away from answering questions. But each of these things should be looked at separately. You can't mix and match. Though the government wants to paint them all under the same brush. So let's talk about number three, number two, number one. Let's talk about number three, George Soros. Old 92-year-old man sitting somewhere in England, dubious character as per me, and I've studied George Soros. What he and his life, and he has a vested interest. He's generally spooked a lot of governments with his how he wants the market to crash, etc. Dubious guy. But seriously, is Indian democracy so weak that a 90-year-old man sitting somewhere in the world can actually crash democracy? If you have evidence that this man is indulging in anything illegal, right? So there are two aspects. One, he has an opinion, which is fine. I may have an opinion about President Trump, about Rishi Sunak, about Boris Johnson, etc. That doesn't make me an enemy of UK or an enemy of USA. If the government has evidence of his money causing interference, they need to prosecute him. Let's come now to the BBC before we come to Mr. Adani. The BBC report, the BBC documentary, when it came out, prior to it being banned, came out about 6 days prior to it being banned. And on all the groups that I am, WhatsApp groups, when this documentary came, this is prior to it being banned, my reaction, and a lot of people's reactions was, this is only going to help the BJP. There was nothing new in it. The Honorable Prime Minister's got a clean sheet from the Honorable Supreme Court. Whether you like it, dislike it, you agree, disagree, that's where the matter ends. If there's something, somebody has evidence, they should go to the Supreme Court and present it. Nothing in the documentary was new. That had already been spoken for so many years. Somebody in the government decided to be more loyal than the king and decided to try and ban the documentary. Now, you know what happens. In an internet age, nothing gets banned. When you try to ban it, there'll always be a reaction. There was a reaction, and people started, at least university students started screening the documentary, creating all sorts of stress. There was no need for the government to have banned it. In my opinion, if you don't like something, make another documentary. Let it be. There's so many books about Mr. Modi, his role negatively in Gujarat, his role positively in Gujarat. They exist, they coexist. Mr. Modi has been winning despite that. There was no reason for the government to have acted the way it did. I think there's a complete overreaction. Then you go to conduct these so-called tax surveys at BBC for what you call the transfer price share surveys, and you're looking at journalists' phones. So if your transfer price surveys happened in 2008, 9, 10, whenever they allege that they happened, why journalists working today in BBC have that on their phone? They're going to keep it on their phone. So that was ridiculous. You were trying to send a message. Again, it amounts to nothing because you're not going to be able to prosecute anything. Then you come about it saying BBC is anti-India. Well, if it's anti-India and it's indulged in anything anti-India, you should act legally against it. Tax surveys are not going to solve that, right? So you can't say something's against the country. I'm the prime minister or the home minister, but hey, I'm only going to be victim and I'm not going to do anything. Then you're duty bound to act. When you don't act, it raises questions on you. Now let's come to the third, the Hindenburg report. In a nutshell, what was this report about? In a nutshell, forget those 88 questions, etc., 62 of which were replied to by the group. In a nutshell, this group raises 4 or 5 important questions which are not answered by anybody. That there is an apartment in Abu Dhabi where 6 shell companies registered in a tax haven operate from.
Let's not go into the technicalities of it, Tehseen. What I would like you to tell me is, let's say if a precedence of something like this had happened before 2014, do you think the government could have gone away without answering questions just the way that they have done now? I'm not going into the authenticity and the relevance of this case. I'm saying prima facie, whatever it looks like, do you think the government could have not answered questions in the parliament or anywhere else and said that this is all a conspiracy and gotten away with it?
No, but these guys do because of the tyranny of the majority. You see, the question asked to the prime minister. Let me you because you interrupted me. The question asked to the prime minister was: are funds in Indian defense companies coming from shell companies registered in tax havens? That's the basic question asked to the prime minister. Either he answers, he doesn't answer, he says we'll investigate. Your answer can't be why is your surname Nehru and not Gandhi? Why is your surname not Nehru and Gandhi? That can't be your answer, right?
So how is it possible at the moment, if, I mean, any prime minister or leader would have preferred to answer things this way before any difficult question. How is it possible now with the current framework for a prime minister to answer like this and get away with it? Why do you think it's possible?
Variety of reasons. One, that the democratic process or the parliamentary process is not very well understood in our country at this moment.
It was understood before and not now. Is that what you're saying?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But what happened was the government then didn't shy away from debates like the government now is shying away. And there isn't enough public pressure to make parliament function. So if you go back to when the UPA was in power and the BJP was in opposition, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley ji are on record saying that it's the right of the opposition to disrupt. Now the government is disrupting. So the only people who don't want to debate are the same political party which was in opposition then and in government now. They don't want to debate. But two, there's also a larger issue. Parliamentary communication between the government and the opposition is completely broken down. The opposition heckles the prime minister when he's speaking. the prime minister is attacking the opposition, and the main leader of the opposition, his speeches are being expunged on very legitimate questions. There's a trust deficit. One more thing. Parliament, unfortunately, has become a rubber stamp for the government to get to its duties. So even if you go back to earlier instances where you go to the farm laws, how did the vice president, then chairperson of Rajya Sabha, pass the farm laws? On a voice vote. And MPs from the opposition, including Jairam Ramesh, who asked for a division of vote, were not given it. It's a fundamental right of MPs. Because the government, in my opinion, that day when they passed the farm laws in Rajya Sabha, did not have the majority. Their own allies were not ready to pass it. So parliament's just become a rubber stamp. That's the problem.
I'll come back to my original question as well. Do you think there is a conspiracy going on around the world against India to bring it down?
There will be some amount of
anything more than what was already there. I mean, we have gone through a Cold War where we were with
there will
there was
always be
always bad news.
there'll always be
Anything
there'll
that
always
is more conspirational than what it was before?
Yeah, a little bit more there will be, because India is a growing superpower, because India is poised to become the third largest economy in the world over the next decade, because we should become a $5 trillion economy by 2026. So there will be certain amount of vested interest, geopolitics. Also, India is now a member of the Quad. There will the new battles will be fought in the South Pacific Sea. So there will be certain amount of countries not happy with India's rise. It happened in the past, it will happen now, perhaps be a little bit more now. That will happen. Is the world ganging up to conspire against India? No. Will there be people or countries upset with India's rise, happy to see India fall? Yes, there will be, of course. It always happens, it will happen even more now. The next decade and a half should belong to India. But the answer, the question isn't, are there these countries? That existed before, it exists now, perhaps stronger. The solution is what is important. The solution for that is not India becoming a closed nation or the Indian government trying to be closed. The solution to that is being more open, more transparent, more democratic, more trusting of your citizens, more partnership with your citizens. Don't be the big brother over your citizens. The more you're transparent, democratic, the more India will succeed. India's success lies in her democracy. There should be more of democracy, not less of democracy.
Now, in this context, I'd like to bring you a few years back, 2013, let's say. It was at a height. India was at a height of a movement about a kind of an image on it is the most corrupt country in the world, and it gave rise to. At first, I would also ask you: would you see that also as a conspiracy by the rest of the world? And the second thing is, do you think that at that time those allegations that were there were proportional and fair, and do you think those perceptions or whatever those reasons for a corrupt government that came down have been addressed since 2014, and are they not in existence, at least to some extent?
No, corruption still exists even for it's perhaps has made no difference to people's life. Maybe at some level, at certain level in corridors of absolute high investment, maybe it's made some amount of difference, but otherwise to the common man, there's still that much corruption. Corruption hasn't changed. To your question on whether that was a conspiracy against India, not just that, even if you go back to the nuclear deal, something I keep speaking about on TV, the 123 agreement that India signed despite not being a signatory to the NSG, the BJP got together with the left to oppose the nuclear deal. But nobody called the BJP anti-national, right? In my opinion, there was nothing worse for this country than opposing the nuclear deal and getting the NSG exception. Yet the BJP in parliament tried to bring down the government along with the left. But nobody called them anti-national. So one, the BJP needs to stop calling the opposition anti-national. But to this specific movement that you're talking about, the Anna Hazare movement, it was a fraudulent movement in my opinion. I won't mince my words. I was one of the first few people, and all of that is there on my Twitter timeline, to call out these bunch of frauds and crooks, and I maintain that. I know Anna Hazare. I'm today in Pune. He stays a few kilometers away from me. I know this guy from ages. For him to suddenly become this messiah and have this thing, there was no. This was a movement to change the government. But let me put it another way. It was the then government that failed to address the issues. What was the need to give Anna Hazare legitimacy? Or anyone else of that movement legitimacy? Who gave them legitimacy?
But
The
you
government.
should do that in a democracy. You should listen to people. That's what an honorable
I will
should do.
I will listen to you if you have a valid point which is based on some amount of facts.
How do
If your
you?
facts are not
That
based
is
on,
the same thing with
I'll
the
come to
statement
you. I'll come. I'm coming. I'm
that
coming to you. I'm coming to
everything
you.
is not valid.
I'll
Based on
come to
what are you talking about? It is right.
you. Very good question. Let's talk specifically. The 2G. The CAG put out a report saying there's a scam of 1,76,000 crore, but it was a notional scam. Now I'm an entrepreneur. One is either pregnant or not pregnant. You can't be half pregnant or notionally pregnant. There is either a loss or there is no loss. There can't be a notional loss. Either Jaya has lost her money or she's not lost her money. You can't notionally lose your money. Money is a real thing. So either 2G was a 1,76,000 crore loss or there was no loss to the exchequer. There was no notional loss. What is a notional loss? Have you ever heard of what is a notional loss? What is a notional loss? So now, on a piece of fiction made by the CAG, Vinod Rai, absolute trashy report. These bunch of people get together saying there's a loss of 1,76,000 crores. And with respect to the Honorable Supreme Court, before whose majesty I bow, they cancel licenses of people who are investing in telecom. You destroyed the entire telecom sector. The first come, first serve policy was not of the UPA, but of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, recommended by the then TRI chairperson. Now, tell me how many of these facts that I'm telling you today, rattling off in 2022, of something that was a 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11 issue, do people know how much did the government of the day communicate this to people? They didn't. What was the story? 1,76,000 crores is what has gone to the Congress or the Congress and DMK in a telecom scam. Did anyone communicate? Did they even come out and say, listen, you're paying amongst the lowest telephone tariffs in the world only because you've put on first come, first serve. If there's an auction, the companies will try and gain that money. You didn't communicate. They communicated better. It was falsehood, but they did it better. So in that sense, when you engage with people who are lying, you gave them importance. You should have put your facts out accurately, correctly. Why you engage with bunch of people who are lying? When you're lying, Jaya, I will deal with you on every issue as long as you're honorable. Don't expect me to be honorable when you're lying about me, when you're tarnishing me. I'm sorry, that's not how it works.
But then everything that you first put out cannot be proved on the point, on the spot. So you would have to first bring the allegations and then get to prove it. So in any democracy, you would have people who would criticize you. Some would be false, some would be correct, but you have to get into the discourse. Otherwise, you would have something where you are continuously blaming any person who is criticizing you, which is also not good for democracy.
That's not what I'm saying. You're completely misunderstanding.
So
I'm saying
lie
no,
or
just
not, it comes to later.
no. Again, I'm not saying that. I'm saying fine. I agree with you, and I'm saying they have a right to go about making up the story and protesting. Unlike the BJP, no one was filing cases or putting them in jail, whatever.
That's
They
right.
continued doing. They did their thing. Fine. On the other hand, it was the government's duty to put out the facts. I am not asking the government to come down with a heavy hand as the BJP or the present government does. So it's a democracy. They've come up, lies, half-baked facts. At least I should put out my version accurately. I'm not doing that. I, as in the government, I, as in not Tehseen. So you can't then blame somebody else for it. The then government should have been accurate on how they were fighting it. And at least when the government knew that these people are basically making up stories, allow them to protest, allow them to put their point of why you indulging them and elevating them to the status of being an equal partner when they're not. They're clearly lying and they're not noble. Then you shouldn't have indulged them. Had they been respectful in the discourse, not lie that 1,76,000 crores is not stolen, then you can negotiate. The negotiation can happen why first come first and why not an auction. You can talk on that. You can talk on policy. But if I call you a thief, which is a complete lie, and I know that you're not a thief, then you can't indulge me. I'm allowed to say what I have to say, allow them to make the thing, but you put out your discourse. That's what I'm talking about.
That's right. You can argue it anyway, but the way I saw it, I'll tell you my opinion. I felt that it was whether it was Actually, 2G scam, I always knew it was not right, because from what the case I saw. But I always felt that it was a very benevolent part of the government to actually engage. And in fact, Manmohan Singh speaking highly of Anna Hazare himself at that time. And I felt that that is what democracy is, and India has arrived where they can let a criticizer come on board and talk to them. I actually, and what happened after that was not a good outcome, fair enough. But what is happening now in terms of slandering anyone who criticizes the government, I think is a worse thing to happen than engaging with people, even if it was false, it was not proven yet. So that's my opinion, and we can.
Yeah, but Anna Hazare's Lokpal bill, which I read, was draconian. It put Supreme Court judges and the Prime Minister under Lokpal and gave the authority to an unelected, unelectable person. The bill was drafted badly. It called some people, it says a respectable member of society, which is a very vague term, will be a Lokpal. And it puts the Supreme Court under a Prime Minister under a Lokpal. Can you imagine what would do to your democracy? Why would you want to discuss something with somebody who's come up with a draconian bill to kill democracy? How can you negotiate on democracy being killed?
Yeah, that's right. And actually, Lokpal is not being talked about anymore, so we can
And
pass.
has Lokpal come in?
Yeah.
And the only person who spoke about Lokpal was Rahul Gandhi in Parliament.
Hmm. So anyway,
Has
nobody's
Arvind
asking for
Kejriwal
that anymore.
has
Nobody
Arvind
wants.
Kejriwal got the Lokpal in Delhi? Has he got the version of the bill he got? Has Arvind Kejriwal got it? And
That's
that's why I'm saying they're not honorable. Therefore, I go that they're not honorable.
in that context, I would like to ask you. See, today, if that's what you said, the way it is dealt with in India today is anybody protesting against the government is considered is given a bad name by the media en masse. The media doesn't question the government much. It is very well known. Anybody who is protesting is a Khalistani who has some other intentions of bringing the country down, tukre, as it is called. And it is actually, this is propagated by the media itself. The opposition is not in a position to ask any questions because the immediate thing is you have looted the country for 70 years. So how dare you ask? As Nirmala Sitharamanji also said recently, Congress coming and talking about corruption, as if the opposition doesn't have any right to talk about corruption at the moment. So the opposition can't question because they have looted the country for 70 years. The people cannot question because those are only people who are trying to bring the country down, or they are Khalistanis, or they are leftists, they are Tukre gang. Foreign media cannot question them because they are conspiring against India. Who will be questioning India and the current government, or is it everything right about them?
But that's why I said that it's a government moving towards authoritarianism. My starting statement with you was that
So,
is
what do
a
you think
government
could
moving
be a
populist
solution from this point on?
political solution. You have to fight this government politically and smartly. And it goes back to what we said in the opening remarks. Be smart, be articulate, have your facts correct, get your information out at the right time, speak respectfully about the government, respectfully in a sense, with facts. Don't make it personal, don't make it nasty. You are in a situation where most of the agencies or institutions are against you, including media, right? A narrative is built. So you got to be doubly careful. The Congress in particular needs to improve its communication. It needs to be a much better communicative organization. Unfortunately, it's improved over the time, but it's still not up there.
Do you think we are staring down an opposition-free Bharat, India? I mean, opposition India, because it's so skewed to one side. The institutions, the media, the narrative, and the communication, the misinformation is so skewed to one side. And of course, as it is a well-known fact, the use of ED and uh, the horse trading of MPs, etc., the government falling down when it is an opposition held state. Do you think, with all those in mind, do you think India is heading towards opposition free one party rule?
The BJP will want it. Anyone in power will want it. Okay, anyone in power will not want opposition. It won't happen. It won't happen because inherently India is extremely democratic. India's democracy, India is a very democratic country. But uh, some of these issues are the fault of Of course, the BJP is immoral and indulging in immoral activities. But at some point, again, I come down. The solution is not legal. The solution is political. See, let's look at Maharashtra. You may perhaps even win in court. The Supreme Court is hearing this issue of how the Shiv Sena was split. But if you're chief minister and 30 of your MLAs are being taken from Maharashtra to Karnataka by your own state police and your own DGP and police commissioner don't inform you, then who do you blame? The
It was
BJP, you know, the
unprecedented.
BJP is going to do everything in its power to take government.
It was a
They
surprise. Nobody expects such a thing to happen. It has been
and your
unprecedented.
chief minister of Maharashtra and you don't know this is going to happen.
In that light, actually, every opposition party in India today looks very weak. Is that really a truth? Everybody looks weak because if you look at West Bengal, every other day there is a scam ED search coming up. If you look at Delhi, they have not still been able to put in a mayor. If you
They
look
put
at
in today.
yeah,
They
they
put in today.
okay, okay, but see the number of days it took and the huge fight even after winning an election. So that way, actually, every opposition party looks very, very weak today. Is it because the power has shifted more to one side, or is it because all the opposition party are really very weak and they are all can be very discredited?
Both. The power is obviously with the BJP. It's a very, very powerful, authoritative government. There's no doubt about it. They're a very authoritative government. So there is no doubt about it. But also because the opposition is so fragmented and so only myopic that they don't unite on a larger cause, which they need to unite on a larger cause. So when ED is being misused against you, right? It's being misused against everybody in opposition. You all got to unite against it. Unitedly, you got to take a call on it. If you don't unite, if you don't make that an agenda, the perception to the people is that look, they're corrupt. I'm not saying that this is what the common man thinks. Yeah, they may be corrupt in BJP, but it's not that the people they're going after are not corrupt. So chalo, they're doing it here. When they come in power, they'll do it there. It's been normalized. That normalization should stop. And the only way it can stop is when all the opposition unites. Because see, the BJP at its peak has about 35, 36% of India's vote, right? So even then, 63, 64% is anti-BJP. So that's a much larger number. But that number will only show strength if you unite. You're not uniting. So there is a problem there. Again, that does not condone or forgive what the BJP is doing. What it's doing is absolutely unconstitutional. What it's doing is authoritative. But everyone in power would like such an opposition that's fragmented.
Yeah, and not to draw parallels, but actually, this is what had happened in Germany before Hitler had come in. No, everybody hated
Yeah,
him.
but Germany won't
But
happen in India.
no, I'm not
Germany
saying
won't
that. But what
happen
had
in India.
happened was it was a fragmented opposition who, though all of them hated him, but they brought him to power not because he was popular, but because the opposition was fragmented. And I'm saying it's not
Yes.
to draw parallels, it's not talking
Yes.
about Germany, nothing at all, but it's
Yeah,
just an
yeah.
example from history. Uh, so I would like to ask you that then into 2024 next year, as general elections happen, what do you think would be the issues on which it would be fought? What would be in people's minds?
Can I tell you, as a Congress supporter first, because
Okay.
I vote for the Congress. I've always kept this upfront, despite being a political analyst and
But you are
consultant.
not
I've
from the
always
Congress party. You
at
speak
all.
as a sympathizer of the Congress thought.
I'm a political analyst, a consultant, but I've always thought it's in transparency to keep it out that I support the Congress, and I've always voted from them from the day I was 18 and I cast my first vote. There's also historic ties with the Congress, with my family, but I don't want to get into that. You see, if you look at the BJP and the Congress, is two restaurants. So the BJP restaurant has a buffet. You know, the head chef is Prime Minister Modi, and there are a number of sous chefs. So there is Amit Shah, there is Jay Shankar, there is Nirmala Sitaraman, etc. Now, you may like or dislike each of the individual dish, but they'll all serve your dish. So the Prime Minister, as the head chef, is giving you a fanfare of these exotic dishes that have been served. Amit Shah is giving you the Ram Mandir. Jay Shankar is giving you G20 and India's external power. You may agree, disagree with it, but that's what they're selling. Nirmala Sitaraman is giving you the economy. Again, you may agree, disagree. We think it's a bad dish, you may think it's a good dish. But she's serving you something, he's serving you something, Amit Shah serving you something. You have a buffet to choose from. In the case of the Congress restaurant, you don't know who's the head chef. You don't know what are they going to serve. All this restaurant's telling at lunchtime is that the BJP restaurant is bad. I agree. I want to eat in your restaurant, but I need a menu, right? I need to understand it's a buffet, it's an a la carte. I need to understand what you're going to serve to me. I need to understand who's your chef. I don't have any of that information. All I'm told is Nirmala Sitaraman's dish or Jay Shankar's dish is bad. We served a better dish. I agree. When you were in government, India's external affairs policy is better. I agree. Therefore, I don't want his dish. But I want to come to your restaurant, but tell me what you're going to serve me. What is it that you're giving me that because this is bad? I don't know that. So the Congress needs to again up its communication and tell people what it has going to give them precisely. Number two, look at the example of Himachal. It's a very interesting example, and look at it, compare it with Gujarat. Two states go to elections together. Now, Himachal is a 95% Hindu state. 65% of the population is upper caste. Prime Minister Modi campaigns there and says, this is my second vote. He says there, don't look at the candidate, just remember you're voting for Modi, look at Lotus and vote for me. And yet the BJP loses. Now you can argue on the percentage of vote, etc., etc. The BJP loses. Contrary, the Congress does not bring up Hindu-Muslim, does not fall into the trap of these left loonies who are now infiltrated the Congress because it's infiltrated with left loonies and NGO-walas. It doesn't fall into that trap. None of these people go about and make personal comments about the prime minister or anything. They don't allow the BJP to divert the election. Mrs. Gandhi, Sachin Pilot, Mrs. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, Sachin Pilot, Bhupesh Baghel, and the local leadership speak on national issues and local issues. So they speak on the old pension scheme, they speak on Agniveer, they speak on the apple farmers, they speak on the truck issue, etc. Issues that are local, issues that are national. They defeat the BJP on issues of nationalism in a state which is 95% Hindu, where Prime Minister says, my second home, vote for me. They defeat them comfortably. Compare this to Gujarat, where the Congress has a sitting 40% vote. All these NGO-walas could not save you. People want good governance, but the issues have to be governance. The issues cannot be, this is your name, that is your name, your father did this, your grandfather did. Let the BJP do it. Let the BJP fall for it. They will pay for that. You fight on issues. And the issues of this country is unemployment, lack of opportunities, lack of growth. That is the only issues that will help the Congress win. It is the Achilles heels of the BJP. They have no answer to that. They have no vision for the future. They don't know how to talk about artificial intelligence. They don't know how to talk about blockchain technology. They don't know how to talk about the future that's going to bring in. You need to talk to people. You need to show people a roadmap. Simply saying the BJP is bad will never help you. It will not. Your policies may be progressive or regressive. I may agree or disagree. I may agree with the old pension or disagree with it. I may agree with Agniveer or disagree. I have something to talk about. That is what you should be inspired by. That is what the Congress should be inspired by. BJP's vision for the future is we're going to be a $5 trillion economy. We're going to be a $10 trillion economy. We will. Even if, Jaya, you are Prime Minister, you'll still be a $10 trillion economy because India is going to grow. The question is...
Don't strike me like that.
No. I'm saying, or even if I'm Prime Minister, we'll grow. You don't require Prime Minister Modi to make you $10 trillion because Prime Minister Modi is a cut above all of us. We are ordinary mortals. I'm saying it in that context. You and I are ordinary mortals. Prime Minister Modi is the most powerful man in the universe, right? But even if he is not Prime Minister and he's in opposition, and you or I are ordinary people like us are Prime Ministers, India will become a $5 trillion economy because we're going to progress. The challenge before India is not becoming a $5 trillion economy. The challenge before India is can we increase our per capita income? There Jaya's expertise will come in because there Jaya will be better able to distribute resources to make sure people get the same opportunity. The BJP can't speak about it. So the comparison must be on what are the issues to be fought on. You see what the BJP does is doesn't speak about on the issues that are their weak point.
Yeah, but that, as you said, that communication of increasing per capita income is not something that will gel with the people. It's the buffet that you spoke about in the restaurant, which shows something great of a $10 trillion economy is something great happening, which the BJP is showing is perhaps working with people. It's a simple message. It resonates with people. And
yes, but so you can be a simple message. You can be a simple message that when we come to power by 2029, everyone will make minimum 3 lakh rupees a year or 5 lakh rupees a year. You can make that.
That's
You don't
right.
have to say,
I think
per capita income is 2,200. We want to make it $4,000. You don't have to say that. Say sabko 3 lakh, which you have to. It's a political messaging you have to give. You'll have to
that's
give a
right.
political message. You spoke about 15 lakhs in every account.
That's right, and that's why even if you, I know you disagree with AAP, the party AAP, but I think that's something that they do very well. They just show very simple, clear message that your electricity bill, health, education. I think Congress should do something like that, where people can
Yes.
see how it will improve my life, which something confuses me that why they are not doing very clearly. Uh,
I respect Arvind Kejriwal for that. He's a master communicator. He's a. I'm against Aam Aadmi Party, but like I always keep saying, the Chief Minister of Delhi is a master communicator. His language is simple, easy for people to understand, and he's not condescending towards people.
in that context, what do you think of the Bharat Jodo Yatra and how much it has achieved? Because that was perhaps the reason for starting it, to communicate with people at a ground level. How much do you think it has been successful?
Fantastic effort. It's not easy to walk 3,600 kilometers plus. To do that every morning, wake up at 4, start walking from 6 a.m. is phenomenal. And that Rahul Gandhi has done it is testament to two things: his mental and his physical capacity. And I say this with a lot of responsibility. No politician in India has the physical or emotional or mental stamina to walk 3,600 kilometers at one go. It requires being very, very tough. And he's shown he's super tough. He's shown he's super connected. He's seen the diversity of India to 12 or 13 states, communicated directly with people, unfiltered, unbarriered, and he's understood a lot of differences. Now that's good, but that is so far as his image is concerned, because that's changed drastically. Does that mean the Congress will win 2024? No, it won't win 2024 only on the basis of Bharat Jodo. It won't. Now, as the Congress has rightly said, Haath se Haath Jodo, there has to be the political messaging. Rahul Gandhi's image has absolutely transformed. A lot of people, a lot of lies that was put about Rahul Gandhi has now been busted. He's done that. Fab. Now is the next part, the political messaging. But the political messaging must include who the chef is. You may say we are a parliamentary democracy. People will want to know who their head chef is, who their prime minister is. You'll have to be precise. You cannot say we leave it for a later day. It won't work. You'll have to make it. And unfortunately, Mr. Modi wants that fight. Mr. Modi wants it to be him versus a bunch of people, or him versus one person, right? So you'll have to think that through. You know what is said about the BJP? It is this amazing election machine. They are almost impossible to beat. None of this is true. They make as many mistakes as the Congress makes. They're just better at managing it. It's very easy to defeat them. Very easy. But you got to be focused.
Right. I'll come to the last question before I go into a very interesting rapid fire round with you. And this is something personal. That is, you have been an activist for anti-lynching in India, on which you have also given a TEDx speech. So, why did you take up this issue, and how dangerous do you think it is for India?
So I took up this issue because I was surprised why in a modern young society like India, democratic society, would people indulge in something that was a relic of the 14th, 15th, 16th century in Europe or other places, lynching, and use modern technology like cameras and 4G and 5G and Wi-Fi and iPhones and Android to record it. So you're doing something that is absolutely regressive and something that's from the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century in 2020, in 2016, 2017, 2020, and using modern technology to propagate it. So why were they doing it? It was something that kept me, that something that I was ponder about. And I realized that there is a direct connection between loss of jobs and rise of mobs. Economically, whenever you've had the rise of mobs, you also had an economical backlash. Now, all of us want that India grow, at least, I want India become the third largest economy and per capita income grows. For that, investment will have to come into India, and investment will only come into India where there's rule of law. So if you don't have rule of law, if people can get away by lynching somebody, recording it, and there's no rule of law, investments will not flow into India. So it's in India's economic interest to stop lynching. My activism was not just about going to Supreme Court, but we also made a draft law called MASUKA, Manav Suraksha Kanun, that gave lynching a definition that sort of that the Supreme Court said must become a law. Unfortunately, the present government has not brought it in, has not introduced it. Amit Shah ji in Parliament said we don't need a law like this. And opposition states that brought in a law for lynching, the governor still not signed it. And the governor acts on the aid and advice of the union government. Technically, he should aid on the state government, but you know how governors are. They're not signing it.
Any particular incident that triggered you to start this?
All of them. So many. But you know, the one thing that surprised me, do you know more than Hindus and Muslims? I'd given 14 cases in the Supreme Court. Some of them Muslims, some of them Hindus. But do you know who are the most who are lynched in this country? Two categories: women, because it's very easy to call a woman a witch, particularly in rural India, because you want to take away her property, and transgenders. You call a transgender, if I'm permitted in your show to use the word, sex worker, lynched a person. So they are as much lynched as people of different faiths. Lynching is religious neutral. Yes, there is an element of trying to protect the lyncher in certain cases, which becomes global news, but lynching is across religions, but it's more prevalent amongst women and transgenders.
Have you
Terrible.
seen any traction so far in your activism and things changing in the society?
Yeah, it's come down a lot. Because the guidelines in my case on Supreme Court, including because my case also deals with hate speech.
Okay.
So obviously they're not getting prosecuted, particularly if they are close to the BJP. But what happens is there's pressure on the police to act. There is media criticism. So then, I mean, eventually it's a long fight. It's not going to stop in a day or two. And it's a very unfortunate thing to see. But I do see the cases coming down. There's been one now recently in Haryana and between the Haryana Rajasthan thing. So I'm working on that, in touch with the Rajasthan government. And terrible that the accused had a panchayat to declare himself not guilty. That is modern India.
It's wonderful that you find time among your very busy schedule, where you are an entrepreneur, you are a speaker and all that, to find time to take up these cases, because they are very time consuming and needs a lot of effort. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks.
I'll come to the rapid fire round just to take a little bit of heat off this very serious conversation. And because you're a very interesting person, I think many people would like to know a few things about you. My first question is, what was the worst troll that you saw about yourself in social media? What
The
worst
worst,
comment?
I think, about some of the worst comments are about my wife. A lot of personal comments. So you don't like it. You don't want to bring family in. So I think that's amongst the worst.
About
But I
yourself?
think
Something that you took sportingly, and it was not as bad enough, as bad that, but you could take it sportingly, but it was one of the worst.
so I'll tell you what, I take trolls very, very sportingly. Whatever people say, I take it extremely sportingly. I'm trolled equally from the rowdy right and the loony left. One of the things I was completely trolled for a lot is my stand that Nupur Sharma should not go to jail, the BJP spokesperson. I will defend her liberty. And I was very upset that the government threw her under the bus in front of Qatar and Afghanistan and Pakistan, etc. So I had all these people getting very, very upset about me, and so I was trolled from that side. Sometimes I'm trolled from the right side because of stands that I take, which is obviously anti-BJP. But I think it's all in good humor, as long as it's not violent or dangerous.
Great, great. One of your most respected politicians in India?
I would say Priyanka Gandhi Vadra.
Okay. Across the world, internationally, your most respected politician?
Mahatma Gandhi. Or
Okay.
from present, contemporary?
No, it can be anybody, but internationally also you chose from India as well.
Mahatma Gandhi. I think he redefined politics the world over. So Mahatma Gandhi.
One favorite political spokesperson from any party who you respect, whether you agree or disagree with that person.
Sudhanshu Trivedi.
Okay.
Sudhanshu, BJP. Fabulous. What a respectful, what a gentleman. That's how debate should be. You can agree or disagree. Fantastic human being.
Your favorite political satirist in India.
That's now a dying breed, isn't it? Veer Das. But it's a dying breed.
Okay. It is not a
It is a
dime.
dying breed.
It isn't. There is content put out, very good content, and I do follow them. And they actually bring out information very nicely, which is easy to understand in the form of a humor. I follow
Yeah.
quite a lot of them. But Vedas is a
Yeah,
very
But Veer Das is fabulous. Yeah, yeah. He's brilliant. He stands his position. So Veer Das, yeah.
wonderful. A movie that inspired you most in your life.
I'm not a movie person, but a movie that really inspired me. So I'm not a movie person. I don't think I've really any movies inspired me or not inspired me. I haven't seen too many movies
A
in
favorite
life in
movie, let's
general.
put it this way.
A favorite movie. I would have two or three favorite movies. Mm, I like the Leonardo movie on Wall Street, The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay.
think that was fantastic. I love the way he portrayed the character. Then I don't remember the movie, but I saw one which was on I don't remember the name of the movie on Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
I think it was a
I think the
Netflix.
strong woman, or yeah,
The
I
Strong
have
Woman
seen.
or Iron Lady or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
Iron Lady,
I think
Iron Lady. Yeah.
yeah. I think that was phenomenal. I loved how they even showed her human side. So these are two movies that I really liked. And I'm just trying to think of an Indian movie that I really was liked or inspired about. Oh, I loved Chak De India.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
that
my
was inspirational.
favorite is Swadesh. One of my favorite all-time favorites is Swadesh.
So I was confused between Chak De India and Swadesh. They're both equally, but I just say Chak De a little bit more. But yeah, so the next one would be Swadesh. If you push me for one more, Swadesh. So I love these movies. Very inspirational.
Hmm. And a favorite Indian political TV debate show.
Favorite TV debate show in India. The ones that I participate in, I'm brilliant. I get
You are
super
brilliant.
views.
The shows are
So
brilliant.
any show that I am participating in will get a lot of views.
So
So I
you
love it as long as I'm not interrupted.
so your favorite shows are Republic TV, Times of India, Aaj Tak, Z, and all of them.
No, but I love Times because also because I work very closely with them. So Times I'm very comfortable with. So it's something I love.
Times of
Yeah,
India is your
and
favorite.
also Rahul Shiv Shankar is a very as an anchor. I find him very I find him very on top of things as an anchor. He's a very good anchor. You may agree or disagree with the position. As an anchor, he's on top of things. So I do like that about anchors. I don't like anchors who lose control. He's on top of things.
Right. And last one, oh, one of the worst rumors you have heard about yourself.
No, it's not worse. There's nothing worse. But I heard this
Shocking,
rumor that
let's say.
yeah, but I'll tell you politically that I would join the BJP. I was going to join the BJP, and I was like, no, I don't think the amount I've tweeted against the BJP can afford to take me. They'll be in a lot of trouble, and I don't want to go there. But that really upset me that I would want to join the BJP ever. It actually upset me.
Okay. Fascinating talking to you, Tehseen. Thanks so much for giving the time and talking about a few very enlightening things, which and well-researched people like you actually bring in a lot of awareness to people, and that's why I really cherish this conversation. So
Thank you.
thanks very much for joining. Hope to
Thanks, Jaya.
see you
Thank
again.
you. See you.